Hey y'all, I'm the captain, and this is Sailing on the Spectrum, where I talk about the challenges growing up with autism spectrum disorder. Welcome aboard. Today, I actually want to do a review of something. It's a Netflix series called Love on the Spectrum. I have mentioned it in one of my videos previously, although it's been a while. There's been, I think since I would have last said anything about it on here, I think there's been a couple of other seasons, and it's done by, I believe it's produced by an Australian, or at least produced in Australia, but the first two seasons were done with people in Australia, and this third one, which has just come out recently, was done in the US, but by the same Australian producer and production team. And but it's a show about uh, adults basically on the spectrum who are trying to find love, who are trying to date and hopefully find their mate. And it definitely is a neat and eye-opening and kind of in many ways heartwarming show to watch. I guess maybe in a, a few instances it might seem a little heartbreaking, but still it's good. There are some important things to keep in mind though. And as a guy on the spectrum, I feel like I'm qualified to at least offer this. Uh, when you watch this, I would say that the thing that I see a lot of in many of the mostly young adults, there's one exception, and especially in the late season, where there's one who is actually a much older person who's on the spectrum. But the thing is, with most of them, or almost all of them, especially the majority of them that are younger adults, are still, at least as far as I can tell, living with their folks. And I observe, maybe it's just an impression, but I observe that their folks seem to be very well-to-do um, and very, I don't know, I want to say they seem to be a little bit more privileged than I think maybe the majority of people who are in that situation. Maybe that I'm not being completely fair to them, and it's not to say that their parents haven't experienced challenges, or that the people themselves who are on the spectrum who are trying to find love haven't experienced challenges either. But it just seems like with the, I guess maybe the privileged surrounding they have, and probably the ability their parents have to tap into some resources to help their child who's now an adult, I think it's probably something that they have at their disposal a lot more readily than most others. I know that for me, my parents, I'd say, are pretty much definitely better than most, as far as, how much maybe my dad would have been bringing in growing up. But they probably weren't bringing in or had as much as a great deal of the parents I saw in a lot of the uh, people that are in a lot of the adults that are on the spectrum, a lot of the people that are, I guess, that are the cast. But there are some really neat characters or really neat people you get to learn about on the show, and I will give them that. They all seem like neat people. I guess there's only there's definitely a couple in each season, that I think particularly we could really just, really feel like, hey, they'd be really cool to get to know, but all of them really, just seem to have something neat and positive to bring to the table. And I guess that's really the part of the meaning of the show, is just to show that people on the spectrum, aren't people to be kept at arm's length, and are definitely not only capable of establishing a deep relationship, but are often very much in need of it. I would say another thing, though, is there's a takeaway that you could easily take from it, that the people on the show, a lot of them are communicating that the only way they can really feel fulfilled or feel like they're totally validated, I guess really as a human being, I guess, is if they have found that special someone. And I can kind of understand where they're coming from, because I certainly would have felt like that a lot in the time leading before I ended up, dating, and then found my one and got married. But I definitely can understand that, and at the same time, you don't want to give the idea to people that the only way that people on the spectrum can ever be happy is if they find someone to be with. It's not that it's obvious. It shouldn't be like that everybody on the spectrum all thinks that that's all there ever is to their life that that makes it meaningful. That doesn't mean that doesn't really give it meaning for somebody to be able to find the partner in their life they need to spend the rest of their life with and share their life with and lean on for support. Obviously, everybody needs that, whether you're, as we say, neurodivergent or neurotypical, if you're on the spectrum or if you're not on the spectrum. And so anybody can definitely agree that's something that almost everybody feels. Nevertheless, it's not good to give the impression, even though might not meant to be, but it's not going to give the impression that that's the thing that people on the spectrum only really think is the only challenge that ever makes any of the rest of their life worth anything. I definitely can understand, though, that feels like there's a real void if you are, wanting that and feel like you have a deep need for that, and you just don't have it. And if you're on the spectrum, of course, something like that can definitely be very much more challenging than it is for, I guess, as it were the neurotypical population. But it's good to at least see and kind of get your eyes open and get your mind stretched, just to see the kind of people that are out there and see what they're all about. And if you do learn anything, you learn that certainly people on the spectrum are not all alike. There are definitely certain traits that are manifest on a fairly common basis in many of them, majorities of them, but they can all wear a different exterior, and so you definitely learn about the personalities that are out there, that are people that are on the spectrum, and I would say that it's important when you watch a show like that not to feel like that or be made to believe that it's the thing to which to aspire, or that it's somehow a representation of everything that is part and parcel with life on the spectrum. It's interesting how some of them I don't even know have if they have jobs. So a few of them do, I think, and but it seems like the majority of them might not have a job at that point, or you just don't know what they do with their life. And I can understand, because that's probably not an easy thing for them to be able to just go out and do. I think it's just sometimes they have, and people on the spectrum may not be the only ones to do this, but you may have the cart before the horse. You want to find love before you really get your feet on solid ground with what you're going to do with your life, and how you're going to at least have the capacity to provide basic things for yourself, because you want to be able to do that, especially if you're before or by the time you have somebody else coming into your life to share with in that, because you don't want to just be completely dependent on them all the time, and not have a good give and take. I'm very thankful that I have that in my relationship with my wife, but there's more stories and other videos I have about the journey I have had leading in that respect. So if you want to, please feel free to check out my other videos. I talk a lot all about that, and I'm going to have more yet to come. But if you haven't seen Love on the Spectrum, I'll have a link in the description for the trailers for that show, and you can find it on Netflix. And so you know, if you ever want some nice, fairly light watching, you know, each episode's like about 45 minutes long or so. And you know, who knows? Maybe you could go through a whole season in a night if you wanted to. But it's neat. Something my wife and I just, you know, like to chill out and watch. You know, and so yeah, give it a watch and tell me what you think. And anyways, I will be seeing you soon. I will have more voyages to take you on, and so please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will be seeing you later. This is the Captain. I'll see you on our next voyage. Bye.